My name is Eleanor Vance. I'm 46 years old, and on March 12th, I died on my kitchen floor with a grocery list in my hand. I was a librarian, not the exciting kind from the movies, just a regular one in a small town in Pennsylvania. My life was orderly. I liked lists. I had a list for groceries, a list for chores, a list for bills. My husband David had already left for work. My daughter Chloe still upstairs, sleeping in the warmth of dawn. I thought it was an ordinary morning, and then the world fractured. A flash went off behind my eyes, but it wasn't pain, it was like the sun itself exploded in my skull. The pen dropped, my body fell, and suddenly I wasn't in my body anymore. I was floating near the ceiling, looking down at myself crumpled against the cold tile floor. I saw the grocery list lying there, my handwriting tilted, incomplete. My whole life of lists could not prepare me for the sight of my own form lying lifeless. There was no scream, no panic. Only silence, thick and deep. A silence that pressed against me like water around a diver. I watched Chloe come down the stairs a few minutes later. She rubbed her eyes, called out for cereal. Then she saw me. The scream that left her throat will never leave my memory. She shook me, desperate, her hands trembling as she dialed 911. I wanted to touch her, tell her not to be afraid, but my hands no longer belonged to me. They were shadows, unable to grasp. All I could do was watch, my heart breaking with a grief that had no body to contain it. The sounds of her cries and the sirens began to fade. The kitchen dissolved into a soft gray mist, thick but weightless. It didn't feel like dying, it felt like dissolving into something endless. No ceiling, no floor, no walls. The air itself began to pulse, not with sound, but with a vibration deep in my spirit, like a heartbeat that wasn't mine. The gray was infused with a color no language could name, twilight blue mixed with gold flame, but alive, moving, breathing. And in that living color, a presence emerged. I knew before I understood. It was him, Jesus. Not in the way paintings imagine him, not as a robed figure with a crown of light, but as presence itself, gentle, vast, shaped like a man, but more than a man. The moment he came near, everything I thought was important, my lists, my worries, my fears, melted like frost in sunlight. His gaze reached me, but it wasn't just looking at me. It was looking through me, for me, beyond me. He didn't need to ask who I was. He knew. The shock was overwhelming, yet strangely calm. It was awe, not terror. A trembling peace filled me, as if every unanswered question in my heart had just been hushed by his presence. Tears streamed down my face, though I had no body to cry with. I realized then, even when the heart stops, the soul remembers how to feel. I tried to form words, but none came. He didn't speak with sound. His voice arrived like thoughts, but heavier, eternal, pressing with gentle authority. Just my name, Eleanor. One word, and it carried every moment of my existence, childhood laughter, the vows at my wedding, the nights I wept unseen, the joy of holding Chloe for the first time. Every breath of my life was contained in the way he said my name. I thought of science, of doctors who say the brain shuts down after death. Yet here I was, more alive than I had ever been. My mind sharper, my senses magnified, my spirit awake in ways impossible on earth. I remembered something later, how doctors called it a miracle, that I had no brain damage after 23 minutes without breath. They had no explanation, but I knew. Life is not locked in the brain. It flows from the eternal soul. I wanted to ask him everything. Why suffering? Why fear? Why this sudden collapse on my kitchen floor with groceries unfinished? But before I could form the question, he answered with something far deeper. Not words, but a flood of understanding that sank into me like light into water. He knew me. He knew the reason behind every secret, the ache beneath every harsh word I had ever spoken, the hope tangled in every mistake. He didn't only see what I had done, he saw the story he had written for me, the story I had smudged but never erased. And then his presence deepened, the atmosphere trembling with meaning. I sensed it before I knew it. He was going to ask me something. The first question. My soul leaned forward like a student waiting for the teacher to speak. The moment hung there, like the breath before thunder. I wasn't afraid, but I was undone. My life on earth had ended in silence, but here eternity was beginning with a voice. The gray mist, the vibrant living light, the presence of Jesus, it all swelled with one truth. I had crossed over, and he was about to reveal why. His presence surrounded me like warmth that seeped past every layer of who I thought I was. I couldn't hide. I couldn't pretend. There was no mask to wear, no clever answer to give, no performance to maintain. Jesus' eyes, if I can call them eyes, were not simply looking at me. They were looking through me. And I felt, for the first time, what it meant to be utterly known. The light around him pulsed with tenderness, and then his thought came, heavy with eternity but soft as a whisper in my own mind. Did you learn to receive love? I froze. It sounded so simple, but the moment he asked, the world around us shifted. The gray mist swirled, and suddenly I wasn't standing in that endless place anymore. I was back in my own living room years earlier. David, my husband, walked in smiling, a bouquet of yellow tulips in his hands. My favorite. It wasn't a holiday, not my birthday, not an anniversary, just love, plain and free. I saw myself take the flowers and say, "Oh, you shouldn't have. We need to save money." I winced as I watched the scene unfold. I saw the light in his eyes dim, just a fraction. He had wanted to give, and I had given him a reason not to. I had stolen the joy from his offering because I didn't know how to simply receive. The vision dissolved and another appeared. I was at work in the library, years earlier, when a young coworker told me I had inspired her. She said she loved the way I organized the children's section. I brushed it off. "Oh, anyone could do it," I replied. I couldn't accept her admiration. I had tossed her gift aside because I didn't feel worthy of it. Scene after scene flowed, my mother telling me I was a wonderful daughter, and me quickly changing the subject. Friends offering to help when I was sick, and me insisting, "I'm fine, I can manage." Again and again, I watched myself turn away the love being handed to me. Not because I was unkind, but because I didn't know how to let it in. Back in his presence, I fell apart, tears I didn't know my soul could carry poured out of me. My life had been full of lists, responsibilities, duties. I thought being strong meant carrying my burdens alone. I thought holiness was giving, serving, pouring out. But Jesus was showing me that humility also meant opening my hands, opening my heart, and saying, "Yes, I receive this love. I am worthy, not because of what I do, but because of who I am in God's eyes." The weight of his sadness pressed on me, though it wasn't condemnation. It was sorrow for what I had missed. He wasn't angry. He was grieving for me, for all the joy and intimacy I had pushed away without realizing. That question kept echoing. Did you learn to receive love? It was then that I understood something I had never grasped on earth. Receiving love is not selfish. It is not weakness. It is worship. When someone offers love, whether through words, flowers, a helping hand, or a prayer whispered in the dark, they are letting God's love flow through them. To reject it is not just to shut them out, it is to shut him out. The realization crushed me. I thought back to the last hug Chloe gave me before that morning. She had said, "Love you, Mom," as she hurried off to school. I had smiled, distracted, and said, "Love you too." But I hadn't let myself feel it. I had filed it away like another item on the day's list. Now I knew. Each "I love you" was sacred, a little fragment of heaven sent to prepare me for this place. I wept in his light, undone. But even as I grieved, his presence grew deeper, washing over me like water cleansing every stain. I understood then Jesus does not ask questions to shame us. He asks them to awaken us. His first question was not a test. It was an invitation to see my life as he saw it, to finally realize what I had missed. And you, listening now, you know he will ask you the same. Did you learn to receive love? Have you opened your heart when God reached for you through your spouse, your child, your friend, even a stranger? Or have you brushed it off, saying, "I don't need help, I don't deserve kindness, I can do this alone"? In that place I knew, every time I had refused love, I had refused him. Every time I pushed someone's kindness away, I pushed away the very hands of Christ stretched out to me. The sorrow broke me. Yet his peace didn't let me drown in regret. He was giving me clarity, and with it, the chance to change. But he wasn't finished. The gray mist began to stir again, deeper and darker this time. I felt the shift coming, heavy, weighty. His love never moved away, but his voice filled my soul once more, preparing me for the next revelation. The second question was about to come. The gray mist thickened, folding in on itself like a storm cloud gathering strength. I felt it even before his voice came. The warmth of his presence didn't leave me, it held me steady. But what he was about to show me was heavier, weightier. Then his thought entered me again, calm but filled with eternity. What did you do with the pain? The moment those words settled, my spirit trembled. Pain. I had carried it like a stone in my chest for so many years. And as he spoke, scenes from my past opened around me like doors swinging wide. I was back in my early 20s, working at the little bookstore. My boss was cruel, belittling me in front of customers, passing me over for promotions, choosing his nephew instead. I remembered the flush of humiliation, the silent rage, the bitterness that burned like acid. I carried that wound for years, long after I left the job. The vision shifted. I was older now, in the library where I had spent most of my career. A young man walked in, nervous, asking for help with his resume. He had just been fired, he said. His boss had treated him unfairly, bullied him. He sat across from me with shame, clouding his eyes, fear in his voice. And what did I do? I handed him a book on resumes, pointed him toward the computer, and walked away to finish my list of tasks. But then Jesus showed me what I couldn't see back then. He revealed the young man's heart. I saw the shame, the rejection, the loneliness he carried. And I saw the stone inside my own heart, the old bitterness I had clung to, weighing me down. That stone had kept me silent. It had robbed me of compassion. I could have said, I understand. I've been there. You're not alone. You're going to make it through. I could have turned my own pain into a bridge to reach him. Instead, I let it remain a wall. Scene after scene, moment after moment, came rushing past me. Each one revealed how I had hidden my wounds, treating them as private scars instead of open doors. Jesus wasn't angry, but the sadness in his presence pierced me more than any anger ever could. His question rang in my spirit. What did you do with the pain? I realized then something I had never known on earth. Pain is not punishment. Pain is not just something to survive. It is an instrument in the hands of God, a key to unlock the hearts of others. Every wound allowed into my life carried within it a seed of empathy, a power to comfort someone else. But I had wasted it. I had buried my pain instead of planting it. My spirit bowed low. I had always thought if I could just endure, just make it through, then I was strong. I had never seen that true strength was in letting my pain become someone else's healing. As I stood there weeping, his presence surrounded me again like a tide rising, washing away the shame. He wasn't condemning me, he was teaching me. His love was showing me that every sorrow can be redeemed if surrendered. That nothing in our lives, not even suffering, is wasted when placed in his hands. I remembered Chloe, how she would cry over friendships, disappointments, fears. Too often, I had brushed her pain aside, thinking I was protecting her by telling her, it will pass. But now I saw, what she needed was not my dismissal, but my story. She needed to know that I, too, had hurt, that I had survived, that God had carried me. My silence had robbed her of comfort. The realization was like thunder in my soul. Pain is not meant to be hoarded. It is meant to be shared. It is meant to become a bridge, a way for the love of Christ to flow from one wounded heart to another. And you, listening now, you know he will ask you too. What are you doing with your pain? Are you clutching it tight, letting it harden into bitterness? Or are you offering it, letting it open the door for someone else's healing? The very hurt you want to hide may be the tool he gave you to set another free. The weight of that truth pressed me down, yet his love lifted me. Tears poured from me, not of despair but of awakening. I finally understood why some of my hardest days had ever been allowed. They were not wasted. They were meant to become rivers of mercy, if only I had let them. I bowed in his presence, whispering in my soul, I didn't know. I wasted so much. But his gaze held no anger, only a steady, endless patience. He was not finished. The mist around us began to ripple again, this time faster, sharper, filled with fragments of faces and moments I barely remembered. Ordinary days, forgotten interactions, fleeting glances. And I knew the third question was about to be revealed. The mist around us shifted again, not heavy this time, but quick and restless, like a reel of film spinning too fast. Faces, places, fragments of forgotten days flickered before me. At first, I didn't understand. They weren't grand events. They weren't moments I had marked in memory. They were ordinary, so ordinary I had almost erased them. I saw myself at the grocery store, standing in line behind a weary cashier. Her eyes were ringed with shadows, her shoulders drooped. I swiped my card, grabbed my bags, and left. No smile, no kindness, no pause to notice. The scene dissolved into another. I was at the park, walking past an elderly man sitting alone on a bench. His gaze was fixed on nothing, the weight of loneliness etched into every line on his face. A whisper stirred in my heart that day, go, say hello, but I ignored it, telling myself he probably wanted to be left alone. I walked by, and the chance slipped into eternity. Then came a scene from my own kitchen. Chloe, my daughter, was talking, her voice thick with teenage frustration. A friend had betrayed her trust, and she wanted me to listen. I was nodding, but my mind was elsewhere, tangled in bills and chores. I said, "It'll blow over," dismissing her pain with words I thought were practical. I didn't hear her heart. I didn't give her the gift of presence. Moment after moment unfolded, and with each one, a deeper realization gripped me. In all these small spaces, Jesus had been waiting. He had been there in the tired cashier, in the lonely old man, in the voice of my daughter. I had prayed to see him in church, in answered prayers, in miracles. But all the while, he had been hiding in the ordinary, asking me to notice, to pause, to reflect him in the simplest acts of love. His presence filled the mist again, and the third question came, weighty but tender. Did you show them me? The words cut through me like a soft blade, gentle yet piercing. He didn't mean, did you hand them a Bible? Did you invite them to church? He meant, in those small, unnoticed moments, did you reflect my heart? Did you show my patience when the driver was slow? Did you show my kindness when someone stumbled? Did you offer my presence when someone longed to be heard? I had no answer. My life replayed like a quiet indictment, not of dramatic sins, but of countless missed opportunities. I felt sorrow deeper than any punishment could bring, not fear of judgment, but grief for all the times I had walked past him, blind to his presence in others. And yet, even in my sorrow, his love did not waver. The sadness in his gaze was not rejection, it was invitation. He wanted me to see. He wanted me to know that every single day is holy ground, every encounter is an altar, every stranger a chance to meet him face to face. The truth rang through me. Holiness is not found only in sermons or in grand gestures of sacrifice. It is found in the checkout line, in the quiet kitchen, in the silence between two people who choose to listen. Heaven is hidden in the small, and I had overlooked it again and again. Tears poured from me, but they were not bitter. They were cleansing. I whispered into his presence, "I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I didn't see you." The light around him grew warmer, as though my confession had opened a door. His embrace was not physical, but I felt it as surely as arms wrapping around me. He did not ask these questions to condemn. He asked them to awaken, to remind me and through me, all of you listening now, that life is a daily mirror of his heart. The mist quieted, the vision stilled, and I stood once more in the deep, breathing light of his presence. 3 questions echoed in me. Did you learn to receive love? What did you do with the pain? Did you show them me? I was undone. My life, so carefully ordered with lists and plans, had been measured in ways I had never imagined. And yet, even in the weight of my failures, his love held me, steady, unwavering, eternal. Then the atmosphere around him changed. A gentle ache entered his gaze, and I sensed what was coming. This moment with him was not the end. It was the beginning of something I didn't yet understand. He was about to give me a commission. The stillness lingered, like the pause before dawn. I wanted to stay right there, suspended in his light, undone yet whole, weeping yet healed. Every part of me longed to remain in that presence. I whispered with all the strength my soul could muster, "Please, let me stay. This is home. This is what I was made for." But his gaze grew tender, with a sadness that wasn't rejection, it was purpose. His thought, steady and gentle, pressed into my spirit. Your daughter is calling for you. She has not yet learned how to live without her mother. You must go back. Teach her what I have shown you. Teach her to receive love. Teach her what to do with her pain. And in every small moment, show her me. That is your work now. The ache that surged through me was unbearable. To leave heaven felt like tearing my soul in half. I wanted to argue, to beg, to cling to his light with everything in me. But deep down, I knew he was right. Chloe wasn't ready. David wasn't ready. My mission wasn't complete. His presence moved closer, and though he didn't touch me, I felt the embrace so full, so safe, so complete, that I never wanted to let it go. Yet even in the embrace, a promise lingered. This love would be waiting for me again. This was not goodbye forever, only goodbye for now. Then it happened. The light began to fade, slowly at first, like a candle dimming. The beautiful color, alive and breathing, receded into the mist. The gentle hum of eternity grew louder, like rushing wind pulling me backwards. I clung with everything in me, but the pull was relentless. And then it came the gasp. My chest heaved like lightning had struck it. Pain tore through me, sharp and burning. My eyes opened to sterile hospital lights, machines beeping like drums, voices shouting, "She's back. We've got a pulse." Hands pressed on me. A mask clamped over my face. My throat ached with dryness. My head throbbed with agony. I was back in the body I had left, back in the world of gravity, of pain, of noise. It felt so small compared to what I had just experienced. The doctors later told me I had been gone for 23 minutes. A massive brain aneurysm, they said. By every medical account, I should not have survived. At the very least, I should have been brain damaged. But I woke up speaking, remembering, intact. My doctor, a man of science, shook his head again and again. "No explanation," he muttered. But I had one word that explained it all. Jesus. When David and Chloe finally came into the room, I wept in a way I never had before. I clutched them, not as burdens I had to be strong for, but as gifts I had been commanded to cherish. Chloe whispered, "I love you, Mom." Her voice cracked with relief. And for the first time, I didn't brush it away. I looked her in the eyes and said, "I love you too. I receive your love. Thank you for loving me." Everything had changed. I had carried 3 questions from eternity back into time, and I knew the rest of my days would not be about crossing items off lists, but about answering those questions every single day until I returned home again. Yet even in the relief of reunion, there was weight. A holy heaviness pressed on me, the mission. Jesus had entrusted me not only with my daughter's heart, but with a warning for the world. I hadn't yet understood all of it, but I knew he was preparing me to speak, to share, to tell others what I had seen, what I had heard, and what he had asked. And so my journey on earth resumed, not as a return to normal, but as the beginning of an entirely different way of living. Every word mattered, every gesture mattered, every moment became sacred. But it wasn't easy. Living with heaven's memory inside a fragile body is like carrying fire in a jar of clay. The days that followed would test me in ways I never expected. And yet, through every tear, every small victory, every lesson relearned, his promise echoed, "You will not be alone. I will be with you." Coming home from the hospital felt like stepping back into the same world, but everything looked different. The walls of my house were the same color, the dishes still piled in the sink, the laundry waiting in baskets. But I couldn't look at any of it the way I used to. Life had cracked open. Time itself felt fragile, shimmering, temporary. Recovery was slow. My body ached, my head pulsed, my energy drained easily. Doctors hovered, warning of relapse, urging rest. David tried to shield me, doing more around the house than he ever had before. And Chloe, oh, my Chloe, she clung to me like she was afraid if she let go, I would vanish again. For the first time, I let her love me. I didn't wave her off when she brought me water. I didn't say, "I'm fine," when she asked how I was. I let her tuck a blanket around me, let her sit beside me in silence, let her weep against my shoulder. And instead of pretending to be strong, I whispered, "I need you." I watched her eyes soften, her spirit lighten. She needed to hear those words as much as I needed to say them. My husband came with tulips one afternoon, those same yellow blooms I had once dismissed. This time I took them in both hands, inhaled their fragrance, and said with tears running down my face, "Thank you, love. They're beautiful." His shoulders sagged with relief, like a wound he'd carried for years had finally been healed. Receiving his gift was as holy as giving one. Slowly, my life reordered itself. Lists still existed. I'll always be a list maker, but they no longer ruled me. My first list after returning was not groceries or chores. It was 3 questions, written in my journal with trembling hands. Receive love, use pain, show him. Every morning I saw those words, and every evening I measured my day against them. I noticed things I once overlooked. At the store, instead of hurrying, I smiled at the cashier and asked how she was. Sometimes she only shrugged, but once, she blinked back tears and whispered, "It's been hard." That was enough. Just noticing was enough. I lingered at the park bench where I had once walked past an old man. This time, I sat down beside another lonely figure, asked his name, listened to his story. He had lost his wife 2 years ago. Nobody asked anymore. I asked. I listened. That day, I showed him not with a sermon, but with my ears, my presence. And at home, with Chloe, I practiced listening without distraction. I looked at her eyes, not my phone, not my chores. I let her speak her heart, even when it came tangled, even when I didn't have answers. I learned the holiness of simply being there. Gratitude became the rhythm of my days. I woke up whispering, thanks for breath, for light, for another sunrise. I went to bed whispering thanks for laughter, for tears, for second chances. Life no longer felt like a race. It felt like a gift I didn't want to waste. But with this gratitude came a trembling responsibility. I couldn't ignore what I had seen. I couldn't keep silent about what he asked. Others needed to hear it, to wake up before it was too late. I began sharing my story quietly at first with family, with close friends, with people at church. Some believed, some wept, some looked at me with doubt. But every time I spoke, I felt his nudge. Tell them. Tell them what I asked you. The questions are not only for you, they are for everyone. I learned something in those days of recovery. Many people who've had near-death experiences come back with heightened awareness, with sensitivity to what is unseen. For me, it wasn't just awareness, it was mission. I had been entrusted with a warning and a call. And slowly, gently, I began to sense it. The 3 questions weren't only about personal hearts. They were about humanity itself. The world was standing before him, and he was asking all of us, have you learned to receive my love? What will you do with the pain? Will you show me to each other? I trembled under the weight of it. Because I also saw, if we refused those questions, the consequences would not just be personal, they would be global. And that, I realized, was the heart of the warning he had pressed into me. It wasn't only about me, or Chloe, or my small town. It was for the world. The weight of his questions didn't leave me when I walked out of that hospital. They followed me, pulsing in my chest like a second heartbeat. Every sunrise, every conversation, every moment, I could hear them echoing. Did you learn to receive love? What did you do with the pain? Did you show them? Me. And as I listened, I realized those questions were not only for me. They were for my daughter, my husband, my neighbors, my nation, for the whole world. They were the measure by which humanity itself was being weighed. In the nights after my return, I often woke trembling, not just from the memory of death, but from what I had glimpsed in Jesus' gaze. A warning. He didn't thunder it like a decree. He let it flow into my soul as truth. And the truth was this: when we refuse love, when we let pain harden instead of heal, when we walk past him and one another, the world itself begins to fracture. I saw flashes of what happens when bitterness grows unchecked. Families divided, communities breaking, nations tearing at the seams. I saw pride rising like smoke, blinding people from mercy. I saw the earth groaning, waters rising, storms raging, floods sweeping across coasts. I saw sickness spreading, not only in bodies but in hearts that chose fear over faith, hate over forgiveness. These were not punishments in the way we think. They were consequences, like the natural fruit of a poisoned seed. When humanity turns from God's love, the soil of the world turns against us. Creation itself begins to ache. And yet, even in those visions, his love burned brighter. Jesus' warning was never meant to leave us in despair. It was meant to call us back. He showed me that disasters, epidemics, and upheavals are alarms, not endings. They are wake-up calls to shake us out of our pride, to remind us how fragile we are, how desperately we need him. I understood then. The safest refuge is not in stronger walls or bigger plans, but in returning to the simplicity of his questions. Can we open our hands and receive love instead of pushing it away? Can we turn our pain into bridges instead of prisons? Can we show his heart in the smallest places instead of waiting for the grand? These are not just private matters, they are the turning points of nations. If we choose mercy, if we choose forgiveness, if we choose to see him in one another, then even the storms lose their power. But if we continue in pride, bitterness, and blindness, the darkness spreads like a tide. I trembled as these truths settled into me. They were not mine to keep, they were mine to give. My life now had a mission: to warn, to guide, to point hearts back to the questions he asked me. And so I speak them now, with urgency but also with hope. You, listening, you are not too late. You are not too far gone. Your life can still become the answer he longs for. Receive his love. Let your pain become healing for someone else. Show him, even in the smallest moment. Because the day will come when you too will stand where I stood. The world will fade, the lists will end, the silence will hum with eternity. And in that holy presence, 3 questions will meet you, not as judgment meant to crush you, but as love meant to awaken you. That is the warning, that is the call, and that is the hope. And now, as I whisper these last words to you, I want you to slow down with me. Let the rush of the world fade for a moment. Let the noise grow dim. Feel your own heartbeat. Every breath you take is grace, a chance given back to you. I was gone for 23 minutes. I tasted eternity. I stood before Jesus. I know what waits on the other side, and I know what he asked me to bring back. His questions are not cruel, they are tender, piercing, filled with love. They are not meant to paralyze you, but to awaken you. So hear them once more. Have you learned to receive love? What are you doing with the pain? And are you showing them him? In the ordinary, in the unnoticed, in the fragile spaces of everyday life. The world is shaking, yes. The floods are rising, the storms are louder, the shadows seem darker. But you are not helpless, you are not forgotten, you are called. The smallest act of mercy, the simplest gesture of kindness, the quiet willingness to let yourself be loved, these are not small, they are eternal. I came back because my work is not finished, and so is yours. Do not waste another day waiting for a grand sign. Begin now, in the smallest moment. Show them him. And if these words resonate with you, leave an amen in the comments, subscribe to the channel, and share it with at least 3 friends or family members right now. Now is your time to make a difference. Spreading this message is not only an act of love, but also a mission that Jesus himself has entrusted to you.